Many Americans living on a fixed income are struggling to make ends meet. It makes it even more important to find ways to save your hard-earned money. From utilities and healthcare to groceries, there's help available if you know where to look. Hello, I'm Tony St. James. Welcome to this month's edition of Rural America Live with AARP. Now, older adults, without ever realizing it, are leaving billions of dollars in financial aid on the table every year. Just a little bit of planning and researching, though, can help to create savings that can make a big impact. And tonight, our friends from AARP will share information about how to find and utilize savings. We have AARP's prescription drug pricing and coverage expert to answer your questions. We want you to join the conversation. You can do it. We're at 877-283-7570. That's 877-283-7570. All right, here's our question of the month. You ready? What's one benefit or discount you think most people don't know about but should? Okay, that's our question. We're giving away a flip-top cooler to 5 lucky on-air callers. So pick up the phone, join our conversation, 877-283-7570, 877-283-7570. Now, you don't need to be a member of AARP. You don't have to be 50 or older to win. But as a reminder, you can win only once every calendar year. We want to let those who are winners tonight know that an AARP volunteer will call using the number you called from. So be extra nice when they do call. And it may not be tonight, but they will call within the next few days to confirm your mailing address. Now, if you're a past winner and you haven't yet received your cooler, be sure to return the call, provide a shipping address. AARP will pay all shipping costs. Really want to make sure we get those out to you as soon as possible. So, again, return any calls you get from AARP volunteers. And now, if you're not a lucky winner tonight, don't worry. You can enter our AARP Second Chance Sweepstakes. It's online, aarp.org/AARP Live. That's aarp.org/AARP Live. Or it's easier, just scan the QR code on your screen, and one flip-top cooler will be given away every month, winner announced during next month's program. Rules apply. Again, you can win one time in a calendar year. We'll announce September's second chance winner a little later in tonight's show. All right, phone lines are open, and we'd love for you to give us a call and get things started. 877-283-7570, 877-283-7570. I want to welcome our AARP friends back to Rural America Live. Greg Marshallton is State Director from AARP Vermont. And before we jump in much further, Greg, I want to just start with you. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I've been at AARP for a very long time, almost it'll be 30 years shortly. And I've worked all over the country. One of the reasons I've stuck around a long time is I love my work. And I love working on this show, particularly because I think one of the things we're trying to do here is help demystify stuff, provide really good information to people across the country. And tonight's show is really important that way because there are benefits out there that people are entitled to, that they could use, that they just don't know are there. And I think we're going to help them learn about that tonight. So excited to be here as always, Tony.
All right, so Greg Marshallton. Now we have Lee Purvis with us. And Lee, you are Medicare expert, AARP. A little bit about you.
So first of all, thank you so much for having me. And yes, I work at AARP and I work on our prescription drug policies. And like Greg, I have been there for quite a while, about 20 years now. And I also am there because I genuinely, like so many of my coworkers, believe in what AARP is doing and is trying to share this kind of information that I think is incredibly important for people to know about. And like I said, I'm happy to be here doing that tonight.
All right, so we're so excited. By the way, phone lines are open right now, and we are at 877-283-7570. That's 877-283-7570. Greg, I'm old enough that I remember when our calls, you had to be careful every time you made a call. It might have been a long distance, and all that's gone now. And by the way, that's toll free anyway.
It is.
So, okay, let's jump in. I've actually jotted a question down here. I'm going to see if I can stump you.
What do you got for me tonight, Tony?
What are some financial challenges that older Americans are facing?
Well, look, there's some of the biggest challenges that older Americans face, or challenges that all Americans face. One of the things that we know older Americans face are the rising and ever-increasing costs associated with healthcare. Lee's going to talk about more of that as we get further into the program. Housing is another big one, and food. Look, we all go to the grocery store, we all buy milk, buy cereal, we buy vegetables, and we are seeing these costs go up. I'm certainly seeing it, others are seeing it across the country. So let's start with food. Food assistance program. This is commonly referred to as SNAP, and we'll call it that for tonight. But 60% of adults 50 and over who qualify for this program that helps put good, healthy food into their kitchens and into their bellies do not apply for this program. So we'll talk a little bit about that moving forward as well. Then one of the next things, it's $20 to $300 a month in assistance. And when that's real money when you're talking about the kind of costs that we are seeing now for for good, healthy food, which people can get. The budget stretcher for multi-generational households. This helps stretch that budget a little bit, provides more access to food. And you can see sort of how broad the SNAP program is. And again, 6 in 10 people that are eligible for it have not applied. And then finally, one of the things we'll talk about here in food assistance is the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program and the Commodity Supplemental Food Program. I happen to know a lot about the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. I'm from a very small, very rural state where farmers markets are a really key food part of our economy. So if you're a part of this program, you can actually go to a farmer's market where the people, just down the road or up the street have grown the food. You can get really healthy food. This is a really terrific and important program. Again, one that is underrepresented. We need to get more people aware of it.
Okay. Actually, I was taking notes there. I don't know if you noticed, but I've got a pen, and you might want to get one too, or a pencil, or maybe you do it on your phone, and you just keep your note. My wife does that. Yeah. I'm not very good at it. I'm old-fashioned. I like to write it down. Speaking of writing down, Lee, I've written one down for you as well. Healthcare, that's a big one, and a big cost there, but prescription drugs as well. Tell us more.
Yeah, we are very well aware of the fact that when it comes to healthcare costs, prescription drugs play a really big role in a lot of the costs that people are facing. In fact, we've been surveying people for quite a while on these issues, and we know how important they are to them. And what we're finding is that about 30% of them are reporting that they're having a hard time or thinking they're going to have a hard time to pay for their prescription drugs. And they're taking a lot of measures to try to make those drugs more affordable. One thing we've been hearing about lately are people who are focusing on going online, finding those websites that can help connect you with lower cost drugs and trying to find savings that way. We're also looking into drug discount programs. We do know that there are a lot of things out there that can help reduce your costs, but there are also some programs out there that we don't know that necessarily everyone is aware of. One really important one are Medicare savings programs, and that can help you save a lot of money on the deductibles and cost sharing and premiums that you have under Medicare. Another really important one is the Medicare Extra Help Program. That's for people who are in Medicare Part D, which covers those prescription drugs you pick up at the pharmacy. And if you qualify for that program, you can also see significant savings. And like what Greg was saying about the SNAP program and others, there's relatively low enrollment. There are a lot of people out there who are eligible for those programs and are just not enrolling. And you're talking about sometimes hundreds to thousands of dollars in potential savings. So even if you're not sure if you're qualified, it's really important to get kind of a better idea of whether you can access those programs. And one really important way of doing that is your local state health insurance assistance program, or SHIP. You can find them online at shiphelp.org, or you can also contact your local area agency on aging. And they can actually provide individualized assistance with all things Medicare and connect you with these types of programs.
Let me just add one quick thing too. We're going to have a lot of links available to all these programs at aarp.org/AARP Live. People can go to after the program, and there'll be links to a lot of these programs we're talking about tonight.
Okay, before we go, we need to go to a break here in just a moment, but there are some who are already out there, and this applies to them right now. But is this important information for somebody who maybe hasn't moved into that position yet? Would you think so?
Oh, absolutely, Lee.
Completely agreed. This is something that people need to be thinking about, especially knowing that so many people are struggling to afford their day-to-day costs. The fact that these programs exist is incredibly important, and making sure that people are enrolling when they can is just as important. We want to make sure people can afford the care and the services that they need.
Okay. This is exciting. By the way, phone lines are open right now at 877-283-7570. That's 877-283-7570. We'll take a break. We're back in just a moment. Give us a call. That was... Welcome back to Rural America Live with AARP. Medicare prescriptions can often be complex and confusing. Luckily, we have our friends from AARP here. They brought a very special guest to answer some of your benefit questions. Well, how about all of your benefit questions tonight? We'll see if we can stump Lee. We want to hear from you, though. Phone lines are open. Pick up the phone. Give us a call, 877-283-7570, 877-283-7570. 5 lucky on-air callers will win a carry-all cooler. Give us a call. You could be the winner tonight, 877-283-7570. And remember, if you're not a lucky winner tonight, you can enter AARP's Second Chance Sweepstakes at aarp.org/AARP Live, or scan the QR code on your screen to enter. One cooler given away every month, and the winner announced during next month's program. We'll announce last month's winner in just a bit. Okay, I'm here with Greg Marshallton, State Director for AARP Vermont, and we're also joined by Lee Purvis, AARP's prescription drug cost expert. And again, this is your chance to get those tough questions lined up, 877-283-7570. All right, speaking of phone calls, I think we ought to go to Alaska to get things started here. And we've got Tom on the line. Hi, Tom. Thanks for calling. What do you have for us?
Oh, thank you for taking my call. One of the questions I have is primarily, my wife should be here with me, but she's not at the moment. But on some of her prescription medications she has, it's so expensive on certain medical issues that she has with her prescription that we even go to compound medication, generic medication. It's still so expensive. Is there something I'm overlooking possibly with SNAP program that I'm not aware of until I've seen this on your program that we might be able to take advantage of and help us on some of those expenses?
All right.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw this to Lee really quick. So high prescription drug costs and looking at compound prescriptions and generic prescriptions, but still his wife's got high costs, trying to figure out if any of these programs might connect him to lower his drug costs.
Yes, absolutely. The program that I mentioned, the Medicare Part D Extra Help Program, is definitely something that can help reduce your prescription drug costs if you qualify. You don't pay any premiums, you don't have a deductible, and you have extremely low cost sharing. Another option is those Medicare savings programs, depending on the types of drugs that you are taking. They can help pay a significant amount of your cost sharing as well. And it sounds like you're doing the right thing, trying to look into generics and finding alternatives. That is always my first recommendation, is talking to your healthcare provider to see whether there's a less expensive alternative available. Oftentimes there is, and if there's not, one option that is available, especially for those brand name drugs, is actually going to the drug companies themselves. A lot of them have patient assistance programs, and if you qualify, you can actually get access to their drugs at a much lower cost or even for free.
Okay. Didn't stump her then, so...
You're not going to stump her.
Let's try again. This time we're going to Illinois. And by the way, we have a winner. It's Bruce. Hi, Bruce. Congratulations. What do you have for us?
Yes, I've got a couple of questions for your folks there. I have heard, and I don't know if it's actual, I haven't gotten anything in the mail, has the deadline for Medicare supplement, has the date changed this year? And then I have a follow-up.
Okay.
So the open enrollment is currently underway, or we're about to get underway. This is a really, really important part of what folks need to be doing as they prepare for their next year. So Lee, can you talk a little bit about the open enrollment process and just let people understand the importance of it, what they should be looking for?
Absolutely. So Medicare open enrollment is an incredibly important time every year. It runs from October 15th through December 7th, and that's when you can take a look at your Medicare prescription drug plans and your Medicare health plans if you're enrolled in Medicare Advantage. And that gives you the opportunity to look at how those plans might be changing in the coming year. Oftentimes we can see very big differences in terms of how much your premiums are going to be, what sort of services are being covered, how much you have to pay for those services. And so it's a really important time to take a look at what plans you are in and then make sure that that plan is still the best option for you. So we highly recommend that everyone shop as much as possible during this period to make sure that they're in the best plans and, frankly, oftentimes the least expensive plans for them.
Okay, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
We haven't stumped you yet, have we?
That's not going to happen.
Okay, well, I've written one down. Let's just see how well I can do. There have been significant changes already this year. So, and can you highlight some of these for us? Talking primarily about Medicare Part D prescription drug plans, maybe the highlights and how those changes could help older Americans save more money?
Absolutely. And this is a topic that I love to talk about because AARP was heavily involved in passing a law in 2022 that actually made some massive improvements to the Medicare Part D program. One of those really big improvements is a new out-of-pocket spending cap. So now people who are in those Medicare Part D plans will not have to spend more than $2,100 in 2026. Which is huge because previously there was no out-of-pocket cap, and we knew that there were some people that were spending upwards of $10,000 per year just on their prescription drugs. The other huge change that's coming next year is Medicare is now negotiating drug prices, and those first negotiated drugs prices will become available January 1st, 2026. So the next plan year is when you will finally see those new prices. And oftentimes they are significantly lower. CMS, the agency that runs Medicare, said that the discounts that they were able to get range between about 40% to 78% off of the list price. So really big savings that will be coming to people taking those drugs. And in fact, we know they projected that the out-of-pocket savings that people will see altogether is about $1.5 billion. So we are talking about a real important improvement for people who are taking those drugs that Medicare is now negotiating.
Greg, I know about these changes, but because I'm hearing about them, how important is AARP in getting a lot of this done and your volunteers?
Well, I can't overstate, well, first of all, I'm talking to Lee, like how many years we've been working to get price negotiation in Medicare. The VA has had it for many, many years. So you can see it's, think about sort of the Costco principle, right? If you go to Costco and you buy paper towels, in a bunch of 20, it's going to be cheaper than going to the grocery store and buying in a package of 2. And Medicare's got millions and millions and millions of members, so we can really negotiate lower drug prices here. And AARP has been fighting for this for years. So the victory that Lee talked about that she was integrally involved with was a huge one for our members. And we had volunteers making phone calls, calling their members of Congress, going to members of Congress in their districts and saying, we've got to get this done. And finally, it did get done. And as Lee said, on January 1st, for the first time, we're going to see discounts in that range of 40 to 60%. And again, these are for drugs that people sort of take the most and use the most. So not ones out there that very few people take. They're really trying to negotiate the ones that are broadly taken. And really, really proud moment for AARP when this became law, and particularly exciting that it's actually about to go into effect.
Okay, speaking of going into effect, I am putting LJ on the line right now. LJ's from Nebraska. And by the way, LJ, congratulations. You're a winner. What do you have for us?
Well, I'm just wondering, does a person have to, I might have to go on Medicaid, but if I do, can I still have AARP?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You can, if you have to go on Medicaid, you certainly want to talk to your healthcare provider, but also, as Lee talked about earlier, your State Health Insurance Assistance Program, or SHIP, and there is one, and you're available to you in Nebraska, to call them, because there are some issues with what we call dual eligibles, Medicare and Medicaid beneficiaries. So is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think Medicaid is an incredibly important program in terms of reducing those out-of-pocket costs. So to the extent that you're having a hard time affording healthcare, Medicaid is going to be a really important change. But yes, I do think your SHIP will probably be the best option for you to talk through exactly how things might change were you to enroll in that program.
Right. I'd also just say that, again, to prop up these SHIP programs, get yourself ready. Have a list of the prescription drugs that you're taking every month. So that helps them understand, how they can provide you the best information possible. But you'll always be an AARP member if that's your question. Whether you're on Medicare or Medicaid and you want to be an AARP member, of course we want to have you.
Okay. By the way, we're toll-free tonight at 877-283-7570. That's 877-283-7570. We'll see if we can stump Lee tonight. Now, before we do that, you mentioned some of these drugs. I'm reading here, 30-day supply, and I can't hardly read that because I don't have my readers on. But here's Novolog Pen for diabetes, what is that, a 76% lower than the list price? Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. Medicare did an incredible job of negotiating lower prices. And like Greg said, these are drugs that are very commonly used. They cost the Medicare a lot of money, which is why they were chosen, which means they're either very expensive or they're used by a lot of people or both. And so there's going to be a lot of names that you probably will recognize when these prices become available. Things like Eliquis, which is a blood thinner, or Jardiance that's used for diabetes. There are a lot of different drugs that are included in this first round of negotiation that included 10 drugs. That really affect common conditions. And so, again, something that a lot of Medicare beneficiaries are going to benefit from.
All right. Great.
Just to add really quickly, I just want to help people understand, like, every industrialized nation in the world has been doing price negotiation for decades and decades now. We're finally joining that. So this isn't anything new to the drug companies. They've been doing this with countries all over the world. We're finally just arriving at this point. And again, we're talking about drugs for diabetes. We're talking about, drugs for people with hypertension, blood thinners, those sorts of things. These are the drugs that people need the most and take the most. And as Lee said, we're really proud of how Medicare did these negotiations because it's really going to make a huge difference in people's pocketbooks and their health.
Okay. We haven't stumped her yet. Let's try again. Maybe we'll get it from Pennsylvania. That's where Dawn is. Hi, Dawn. What do you have for us?
Hi, good evening. I keep hearing her say if you qualify. How do you qualify for this? Is there a dollar amount or what is it?
That is a great question. It depends on the program. So, for example, the Medicare Part D Extra Help program, there are income and asset limits, and those are what you need to qualify for the program. For the Medicare savings programs, those are actually administered by the state, so you can have differences in terms of your income and assets that you're needed to qualify. But again, it kind of goes back to applying for the programs to make sure that your particular financial situation is one that meets the criteria, but it is a financial question in terms of whether you're eligible.
I'm kind of wondering, why is it important to review this, if you will, instead of just setting it and forgetting?
That is a great question.
Really?
It is.
Yes.
It truly is. Just like really any health plan, you can see a lot of changes in terms of your Medicare health and drug plans, whether it's what is covered, how it is covered, whether the costs are higher, whether your premiums are higher, whether your providers are still in network. There are a lot of different things that can change from year to year, and we certainly see those changes from year to year, which is why we go back to recommending during open enrollment, take a look at your plan that you currently have, make sure it still meets your needs, and if not, go find another plan. And hopefully that one will better meet your needs. And there is something out there pretty much for everyone. It's just a matter of shopping around, and it's something that people should be doing every single year.
Okay. We're toll-free tonight, 877-283-7570. That's 877-283-7570. I mentioned earlier, I asked the question, the importance of volunteers. For those who would like to maybe volunteer, they've navigated some of this in the past. Is there room for them to help others?
Oh, there's a lot of room at AARP to volunteer. Being someone that's worked in the States now for about 25 years, volunteers are a key part of not only how we do our advocacy, right, how we help get a Medicare prescription drug benefit embedded in law. So as Lise talked about, we can get these new drug discounts out to Medicare beneficiaries across the country. But there's opportunities to volunteer in an array of ways at AARP in our state offices. You can give us a call. We'll help you. You can go onto our websites. So mine is aarp.org/VT. You know, you can do /MN for Minnesota. You can do /AK for Alaska. Somebody will get back to you, but there are a range of opportunities out there. And we try to find the good match for people. Some people like to be advocates and engage in political and advocacy conversations about the issues that we care about. Others like to work on issues like caregiving. Others like to have a huge program that helps people do their taxes, which is a free program that has been around AARP for about 50 years now. It happens all over the country. We have a program that helps people understand how driving, how aging impacts your driving, how you continue to be a safe driver. So we have huge amounts of volunteer opportunities, and we welcome anybody that wants to volunteer with us, anytime.
AARP.org /AARP Live will get you to a lot of resources, but you said AARP.org/what for yours?
VT. So if you're pick your state and just pick those two letters and put it behind the slash, and you'll get to whatever state you're going to.
Okay, I'm just curious. What would I put if I'm going to Missouri? That would be MO, wouldn't it?
That's correct.
Okay, AARP.org/MO. Ernestine is in Missouri.
I see what you're doing here, Tony.
Ernestine, you're a winner. What do you have for us?
My question is, our prescription D drug plan went from $20 a month to $70 a month for next year. And I know she said shop around, but that was just a crazy amount of increase. And I wondered if they would address that question.
All right. Thank you, Ernestine.
That is another incredible question, and is something that we have been watching very closely for the past several years. There have been some Medicare Part D plans that have seen some pretty significant premium increases. And that, of course, raises some affordability challenges. And a lot of it, frankly, is due to the fact that prescription drugs are incredibly expensive, and that is what Part D plans cover. So we do go back to recommending that people shop. It's interesting that this year there are, every single state, you're going to see plans that have very low premiums. Sometimes you can even find a $0 premium for a standalone Part D plan that works if you are in traditional Medicare. So there are some relatively low-cost plans out there. The question is just whether they cover the drugs that you're taking in a way that you can afford. And that really is the outstanding question for when people are shopping beyond those premiums. We always make sure to say it's not just the premiums, it's the type of coverage that's being provided. And so, yes, we are aware that there are some plans that are seeing some big increases, but if you look at the big picture, there are some pretty affordable plans out there. It's just a matter of finding them.
Okay. Kind of like fishing, right?
Well, it's a little better than that, actually. But to Lee's point, one of the really critical things is that it's important to do this shopping around because you want to make sure that the drugs you are taking are on the plan that you're enrolling yourself in. And those changes can happen from year to year. And as Lee said earlier, plans can change. So that's why these state health insurance programs can be very, very beneficial. Put that list together of the 2 or 3 drugs you're taking, and they'll make sure that you're enrolling yourself in a plan where the drugs you're taking are covered.
Okay. You know, we had Bruce on earlier from Illinois, and he had a follow-up, and I think I disconnected, but I think Bruce is back now. Oh. Hi, Bruce. Are you still there?
I am, Tony. Thank you. Thank you, Tony. I was wondering, is AARP, aren't they big supporters of Planned Parenthood and abortion, the abortion?
All I'll say to that is we do not take a position on abortion. It's not an issue that AARP works on. We're a broad-scale organization. So the answer to that is no.
Okay. How about we go to Alabama now? We haven't been to Alabama, and that's where Bo is. Hi, Bo. Do you have a question for us?
I was wondering how much the SNAP program and food assistance program, how do you get on that deal? Is it based on income or what?
couldn't hear the end of that.
Okay, is it based on income? Okay.
Yeah. It's an income-based program. And again, we're talking about a lot of people that are eligible for this program, but it is income-based. And it's called the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, or SNAP. And if you just, again, we recommend here, you can talk to your local area agencies on aging, which will be right there if you just Google that or look in your phone book. Also local extension offices as well that are all across the country, all across rural America. These folks can help connect you with folks that can help you understand your personal situation and whether you're eligible for SNAP or not. But they are income-based programs for sure.
Okay.
Good question.
And that is, I can't believe I knew that. Supplemental Nutrition Assistance
I was trying to get it all out there, Tony. Thanks for helping.
SNAP, it's actually part of the Farm Bill, so I actually kind of know
true.
that. Can't believe it. You know what? We're toll free tonight. We're at 877-283-7570. 877-283-7570. Got another call, and where are we going? Let's go to Arkansas, and I think we've got a winner in Mary. Hi, Mary.
Oh, hi.
What do you have for us tonight?
You know what? We're toll free tonight. 877.
Yeah, I want to know why that they are the Medicare charges a penalty in them each month. Because when I started on Medicare, I didn't have D prescription. I took no prescriptions, and I've come in contact with a friend who did insurance, and she said, "Do you have a D plan?" And I said, "No, I did not take any medicine, no prescriptions whatsoever, and I didn't know I need to get it." She said, "You better get it because you can't afford all of that expensive medicine if you should have something later on in your life." And I said, "Okay." So I took it out, and I have been paying $25, roughly 25 plus, every month since 62. Since I was 62, I'm 85 now. I don't like that one bit, that I have to pay the government that much money every month, and that adds up to be quite a bit in that length of time.
Okay, so some good comments there.
Yeah.
How do we break this down? How do we kind of compartmentalize this?
I mean, I'll let Lee handle this, but I may have some follow-up.
Please go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I think one of the things, and I understand, fortunately, our caller from Arkansas clearly is in very good health because she's not taking any medications. That means she's doing really well, and we're really happy to hear that. But, tomorrow she could wake up and something could be wrong, right? And if she needed that blood pressure medication, or she needed an asthma medication, or she needed something because all of a sudden she's got, some early stage diabetes or something, she would be paying for those prescription drugs out of pocket. And that would be a lot higher, I assure you, than $25 a month, which keeps her in the system. So it's an insurance system. That's what it is. And I understand her frustration. I really do. But, you don't know what tomorrow will bring. And if she may wake up and she may need prescription drugs that she doesn't need today. And if she's not covered, it's complete out-of-pocket exposure. She's going to be paying retail for those drugs, which could be $100, $200, $300, $400 a month, right? I mean,
it could unfortunately be even more than that. And I always like to say that everyone is just one very expensive prescription drug away from not being able to afford the care they need. And that is a big part of why there is such a strong effort to make sure that people are enrolled in those Medicare Part D plans. I believe what you've run into is what is known as the late enrollment penalty. And that is what applies to people who go without prescription drug coverage that's at least comparable to Medicare Part D for longer than 63 days. And the penalty itself is 1% of the beneficiary premium per month, so a maximum of 12% of that premium that will be applied to your premium forever. The late enrollment penalty is something that applies forever. So that is something you'll be paying every month for the rest of your life. But that also brings me back kind of to my overarching point that I've now said several times now, which is shopping. To the extent that you can go out during Medicare open enrollment and find a Part D plan with a low premium, it can make that late enrollment penalty a lot easier to absorb because you're going to be starting from a much lower baseline. And so that kind of, again, makes it really important for people to look at the Part D plans that are available. And if they especially aren't taking any prescription drugs, maybe get one that has a $0 premium if that's available to you, or there are some premiums that are less than $10. To the extent that those plans are available to you, that is an option to help keep those costs down.
I've got so many questions here, but let's not take mine yet because I might stump you. Let's see if Helen in Illinois could. Hi, Helen. Have you got a question for us?
Yes. Medicare, A and B, Medicaid, D plan we have. Now, today we asked our health care provider about ear and eye and coverage with the supplement of Medicaid. And they said, no, there was no coverage on supplement, Medicare supplement. And, well, would SNAP be better than if we use the Medicaid supplement?
Okay, Greg.
I think, okay, and again, this is this can be really complicated stuff. I think what you might be talking about here are the Medicare supplemental plans, right? These are plans that help protect you from excessive cost sharing and high out-of-pocket costs. So SNAP is not going to help you here, but enrolling yourself in a Medicare supplemental plan will help. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I think also, if you are thinking of the Medicare savings programs, those are administered at the state level. They are aligned with Medicaid, and there are different income and asset requirements for both of those programs. But the overarching intent of both of those programs is to really bring your costs down. So you may not qualify for Medicaid, but you may qualify for a Medicare savings program, which kind of goes back to making sure that you're aware of these programs, one, and then two, you're asking whether it's something that you qualify for. But again, the intent of both of them is for people who have relatively low incomes and assets and to help reduce those healthcare costs that are associated with Medicare. Okay.
Good questions. We're not done yet. By the way, we're toll free at 877-283-7570, 877-283-7570. All right, we need to take a short break. We'll come back and we'll announce our second chance winner from September. Could that be you? Join the conversation. We're toll free, 877-283-7570. We'll have a flip-top cooler to give away. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We still have a cooler to give away, and we've got phone calls to take as well, and we're at 877-283-7570. We're loading up some calls right now, so we'd like to put yours in the queue. So give us a call, 877-283-7570. And as promised, how about we announce our second chance winner from September? We're not going to the Big D, but we are going to Tejas and Houston. That's where Wanda D is. And Wanda, you are our second chance winner. Since you provided your information when you scan the QR code, your cooler is probably on its way. Well, I imagine that veterans in our audience may have questions about where their benefits fit into this big maze, where they can get more information as well. Greg, is that something you can kind of chime in on here as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's, again, a range of other benefits that are available. Like one of the things that we like to try to talk about is home modifications. And those benefits can come through the Department of Agriculture. They're grants, they're loans, and they're available for home improvements and repairs. And there are benefits that people can get through the VA as well. They've had a long-standing, excellent prescription drug program, one that Medicare is essentially mimicking right now. But if you've been in the military, there may be benefits that you're entitled to, and local agencies and nonprofits can provide those answers to you. And again, at the end of the show, we encourage you to go to AARP.org/AARP Live, where we're going to have a bunch of links that will take you to some of these places. And again, this is kind of what Lee and I were, what the three of us were talking about during the break. It's like people know what they have, which is great. What they don't know is what they don't have. And it can be a real complex maze to figure that out. So these links can be really helpful. Lots of advice from Lee tonight can be really helpful. But these are benefits that people have earned and that they're entitled to. And we talked about at the beginning of the show, Tony, with high costs of groceries and utilities and gas, these programs can make a real difference in people's lives.
Okay. I just realized something. If you weren't with us when we started, you might not know this is Greg Marshallton, and Greg's director of AARP Vermont. We have Lee Purvis, Medicare expert with AARP, and we're taking your calls at 877-283-7570. Speaking of calls, let's go to Minnesota. That's where Stephen is. Hi, Stephen. What do you have for us?
So I'm not even old enough to qualify for Medicare, but I get 25 phone calls a day asking me to sign up for Medicare when I don't even qualify. Now, I don't need more attention. I need less attention. How do I get those calls to quit coming?
That is really a good question.
Steven's asking, he's not even eligible. I mean, I'm not sure. Certainly, we're not calling him. I can tell you that. But there are probably folks out there. I mean, look, we spend a lot of time each year, probably 2 or 3 programs, right, talking about fraud. I would be wary of folks reaching out to you on the phone, trying to sell you something. Clearly, Stephen knows that he's not Medicare eligible, so he's not like taking the bait. But I would be aware that Medicare fraud is a thing. And it can come to you through your mailbox, it can come to you through your phone, it can come to you through your computer. How you make them stop, if those calls come in, make sure you put yourself on the do not call list. That will break down those calls a little bit, but I think everybody understands that, it's hard to stop these calls from coming, particularly the ones that are coming from criminals.
Okay. Hey, Lee, I want to get you in on this. Stephen's comment and question there, I think, opens an interesting door. For those who aren't there yet, what age are we talking about? At what point do we need to start getting involved and start getting proactive so that we don't end up having to pay some kind of a penalty down the road?
That is a great question, and one that AARP understandably gets a lot. Traditionally, when you're thinking about Medicare, you're thinking about age 65 plus. And that is a big decision. You're making a lot of decisions at the age of 65. Some of those decisions can be put off if you're still working and you still have employer-sponsored coverage. You can think about these things, but maybe not have to make any big decisions. But there are a lot of competing timelines that happen when you're trying to get into Medicare. You have an initial enrollment period when you turn 65, and if you don't enroll then, that's when you start thinking about those late enrollment penalties, the ones that I mentioned for Medicare Part D, but there's also one for Medicare Part B, which covers kind of your doctor's visits. And you also have to decide, do I want to stay in traditional Medicare or do I enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan? And do I want to have a supplemental coverage plan? Like, there's a lot of different things that go into Medicare. We joke that it's kind of an alphabet soup, but that is truly the reality of Medicare. There are a lot of different parts and pieces that are moving. And so taking the time to figure out what kind of coverage you have, what kind of coverage you want, is something I think everyone should be thinking about at 65. Even if you're not enrolling in the program then, it's good to have an idea of what you're hoping to do in the future.
Okay. I tried to stump you with that one, but you were ready.
I keep telling you, man, not going to happen.
All right. Maybe someone from Tennessee can help us. It's Philip on the line. Hi, Philip. What do you have for us?
Well, it doesn't matter whether you have AARP, Blue Cross Blue Shield, or United Healthcare. If the doctors won't accept Medicare, what do you do?
Okay. There's a good question.
It's a great question.
That is a great question. The vast majority of providers do accept Medicare. Where you can potentially run into some challenges is if you're enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan. Those are private plans that provide Medicare coverage and often provide some additional services, things like dental and vision and some other types of services that aren't covered by traditional Medicare, but they also come with a network, which I think a lot of people are familiar with if they've ever had coverage through an employer, where there's a limit on a network of providers and services that they will cover, and sometimes they also require prior authorization for certain services. And so that is where we tend to run into some challenges for people in terms of being able to access the providers and the care that they need that you don't run into if you're under traditional Medicare. And that's definitely something that plays into decision making about which path you choose to take in terms of what coverage that you want. If your provider is not included in the network, you will not have coverage if you're in a Medicare Advantage plan.
Okay. You know, earlier we had Helen on the line. I think it was Helen. I've been jotting notes down. Let's dig a little deeper in on the vision, dental, and hearing side of this. And I think that was Helen who asked that. So let's dig a little deeper. What do we need to know about that?
So the first thing I think people need to be aware of is kind of what I just said, which is that traditional Medicare does not cover vision, hearing, and dental. However, a lot of Medicare Advantage plans do, and that can certainly be something that makes those plans attractive to people who want that type of coverage. AARP has been pushing very hard to have vision, dental, and hearing included in traditional Medicare, and that's something we've been advocating for a very long time. But for right now, Medicare Advantage plans are the best option if you're going to look for that type of coverage to be included.
Okay, let's go to Iowa. I don't think we've talked to anybody from Iowa yet today, so how about Andrew? Hi, Andrew. Do you have a question for us? Hey, Andrew, you there? Might have lost Andrew. Hey, Andrew, if I accidentally hung up on you, give us a call right back and we'll make sure we get you on. You know, we've talked about the websites as well. So we have aarp.org/AARP Live. But Greg, you mentioned the state websites. What will we find through those state websites that maybe we're not finding on the general AARP?
Right. Well, we're doing our best not to create an alphabet soup of websites for our members and for others. So the state websites, again, that would just be aarp.org with a slash and then the two letters that represent your state, will give you a bunch of information that would be, you might have to dig a little deeper on our national website to find. Those will cover local events, local happenings that AARP is sponsoring, local issues that AARP state offices and volunteers are working on. So it drills it down to the state and local level, which a lot of people really, really appreciate. The AARP Live, the /AARP Live website, we just try to link that stuff up with the program that we're doing every month. So again, like talking about earlier, there will be links to learn more about SNAP, learn more about Medicare enrollment, the things that we're talking about tonight. When we talk about fraud, we link to the stuff that we do on fraud. So we try to keep it moving in that direction. More and more people, many, millions of our members are really web savvy. So part of what we try to do with the state websites, again, is to try to give a much more of a local flavor because there's a lot going on, in places like Vermont, in places like Florida, in places like Minnesota, in places like South Dakota, that really differ from place to place because states are working on different issues.
Good. Okay. We've just got to work you back in here, Lee. And let me see, I've written down something. And this is tied back over, I think, to what Mary might have mentioned earlier. And she was talking, I think it was Mary saying that she was very healthy. She hasn't had to use that. But for those needing long-term care, how does that work into this?
That is a great question. And there are a lot of people that aren't aware of the fact that the Medicare program doesn't really cover long-term services and supports, especially not in the way that I think a lot of people hope to use them, which is on a long-term basis. There are areas and times when Medicare will cover that type of care. But the reality is when it comes to nursing home care, for example, or a lot of home and community-based services that are associated with long-term care, those are actually covered more often by the Medicaid program than the Medicare program. So it's something we want people to be aware of because, of course, if the Medicare program isn't going to cover it, that's something that you're potentially going to have to save for yourself.
And I would also add that, to Lee's point, people would think that Medicare would provide long-term care and support services. And people sometimes think that about their own insurance that they're being provided through their employer during their working lives. Those plans also do not provide long-term support and long-term care services. So it's a huge void as we are a nation of people that are growing older and living longer. This is a significant problem that we have to get our arms around. And Medicaid has become sort of like the insurer of last resort for long-term care and nursing home care. But again, a lot of people think, because it makes complete sense that it should be there, but it's not. So you got to think about what that future looks like for yourselves and maybe for your aging parents.
And I'm not quite there yet. But now I'm thinking, I know so much more that I don't know now.
Right.
And now that I don't know it, I'm going to AARP.org. But you know what? Let's go to Michigan first. And I think we've got Teresa. Hi, Teresa. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, what do you have for us tonight?
I am curious if you were on the supplement G with the high deductible, how many years should you stay on that, or should you not really be on something like that?
Okay, supplement G.
That is a great question. We get a lot of questions about Medicare supplemental plans because, like everything Medicare, it is incredibly complicated. The one thing that you really have to keep in mind is that once you are enrolled in a Medicare supplemental plan, if you choose to switch, you will have very limited, if not no opportunity to switch back to a Medicare supplemental plan because there's a finite period of time when you can enroll in those plans without having medical underwriting, which is another way of saying it will count against you if you have health conditions or other things going on in your background that might make it where insurers don't want to cover you, and you may end up having to pay a significantly higher premium, or they may not offer you a plan at all. So it's a really important decision to make if you have a supplemental plan, recognizing that should you move to a different type of coverage, you may not be able to come back.
Okay, we've had some great calls here, great questions. And again, I don't even know what I don't know at this point. So final thoughts. Greg, final thoughts. What do you have?
Well, look, a couple things. The goal here tonight was to try to untangle some of this web around these available benefits that people don't have. I think we've done a good job. The questions have been excellent tonight, and we've been able to unpack a lot of that stuff. But we don't want people to don't let fear get in the way of making sure that you're going through Medicare and the Medicare enrollment process in the appropriate way. Again, lean on these great local resources. As Lee's talked about, the state health insurance program, SHIP, your local area agencies on agency, your local area aging agencies, and local extension programs can really provide real navigation help to get you through.
Okay, Lee, let's go to you. Final thought.
So I'm going to be the broken record and say Medicare open enrollment is upon us. It is incredibly important for people to shop for their Medicare plans and make sure that you are in the plan that works best for you.
That was right to the point. By the way, Lee Purvis with us tonight, Medicare expert AARP, Greg Marshall. Greg, you're here nearly all the time. You could host this.
Well, I don't know if I could do that, my friend, but always happy to be a guest and always look forward to doing this program. We're proud of it, and we think we're doing a good job getting a lot of good information out there to folks.
Again, Greg is director of AARP Vermont, and that does it for us tonight. You know, speaking of AARP, we've got that website. We've used it a couple of times, AARP.org/AARP Live. AARP.org/AARP Live.
There will be those links there, I promised you, Tony, right?
Okay.
Go there and learn more about the programs that Lee and I talked about tonight.
I'm going to check it out right now. We'll see you back here on November 19th, 7:30 p.m., learning how to protect yourself from scams. Have a great night.